Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another live stream with Maria Wendt, your brand strategist. Today, we are talking about the different ways that I streamline my influencers, my seven-figure clients, the way I streamline their brands so that everyone on their team gets it. Because when you're working with a bunch of people, when you're working with someone, hey, Zanette, welcome. When you're working with a bunch of different people, right, and there's a lot of team members, right, so your virtual assistant has to know what's going on, and your social media person, and your Facebook ad guy, hey, Julie, hey, Katie, welcome, good morning, ladies. When you have a lot of people on a team, it can be a little bit hard, or it can be a little bit difficult to streamline that process, but streamlining the process of your brand or streamlining all the different elements of your brand, that's very important, especially when you do have a lot of team members, because you don't want to be the bottleneck. You don't want to be the person that they have to go to when they need to ask about the colors of your brand code or the fonts that you're supposed to be using or the tone or the message, all of that stuff. The last thing in the world that you want is to be the bottleneck for all of that. So what I'm sharing with you guys today, hey, welcome, Cassie. What I'm sharing with everyone today is what I do for my high-end clients, for my influencers, for my seven-figure people, the people that have a lot of teams, those big team member people. I'm sharing with you guys what I do to streamline it so that everyone on their team gets it. They know exactly how they should be talking to their ideal clients. They know exactly what the mission of that influencer is, the direction that that influencer wants her brand to be taken in, the way that that influencer wants to be perceived. All of that needs to be streamlined so that, you know, if you're an influencer, if you're the leader on a big team, the last thing in the world that you want to be doing is being the bottleneck, right? You don't want to have all of your team members coming to you and needing your input on every little detail with your brand. You want it to be streamlined. You want it to be organized. You want it to be delegated. Hey, Jackie, good morning. You want it to be delegated, streamlined, and organized so that you aren't having to do everything and that you aren't caught in this bottleneck where, hey, Amy, good morning to Jackie. Hello, Amy. How are you doing? So if you're a team member, if you have lots of people on your team, you'll know that the last thing in the world you want to do is become a bottleneck. And the last thing in the world you want is for every member on your team to have to constantly come to you with questions about your brand or questions about the images that they should be using, questions about what should be going on the website. You don't want to have to be involved in all of that. You want it to be streamlined and organized in a way where they can access it at any point so that you're not constantly having to be bottlenecked. So we're just going to go ahead and launch right into this. I want to hear from all of you guys if you currently have anyone on your team. And if you do have a team, what size is it? So obviously, this doesn't have to be full-time. Most people have part-time team members. But just share with us how many people you currently have on your team. Oh, thank you. I know I have peppermint tea in my Panda Bear mug. I love it. I always try to have tea when I do these live streams. But yeah, so the question is, do you currently have anyone on your team? And if so, how many people? And Jonathan, actually, while I have you, I think I'm going to be seeing Hope soon. And she sent me a message about your website and stuff. So I'm pretty sure we're going to be moving on that shortly. So I just wanted to give you a little shout out. I know she's getting all of her little ducks in a row first. So Amy has 2 people on her team. Awesome. And Amy, what are they? Are they virtual assistants? Are they social media people? And then what are you currently doing to streamline your brand process? You know, or do you feel like you're currently a bottleneck? Jackie says, I'm pretty new and I have 2 team members. Hey, Carolyn. Hey, David. Hello. Awesome. Yeah, of course, Jonathan. Okay. So the question, guys, if you're just popping on, the question is, do you currently have a team? And if so, how many members do you have? It's okay if you don't. Some people don't have team members. Other people do, but I just want to hear from all of you guys if you currently have a team or if you're thinking about getting a team together and you need to know how you can streamline your brand. So Julie has 3 people on her team. Awesome. Yeah, most people have about, I feel like 2 to 3, 4 sometimes. And I think that we can all agree that sometimes, you know, Julie, I don't know if this is true for you or Amy or Jackie. Hey, Karen. I don't know if this is true for you guys, but, you know, a lot of times the people that I work with, they feel like they're the bottleneck because everyone on their team has to go to them for their graphics or for the logo that they're supposed to be using or the, you know, the color codes that they should be using. And it can feel sometimes like you're constantly answering a bunch of questions. But what you really want to do is automate that process. So what I'm going to be sharing right now is 4 different ways that you can automate that process. And Julie says confusion can happen. Yes, absolutely. And confusion causes frustration, and it causes wasted time and wasted resources and wasted money. So that's a good point too, is that not having that brand streamlined can actually cause a lot of confusion in between the team members. Okay, so the first thing that you guys can do to cut down on a ton of questions, a ton of confusion, a ton of wasted time is have a detailed brand guidebook. And I do this for all of my clients who have team members who need that help. You need to have a brand guidebook. And basically in a brand guidebook, it's not just, this is my logo, these are my fonts, these are my colors. That's bare minimum. You have to have that. But a brand guidebook is, okay, these are the kind of images that we should be using. These are the styles that we should be using. Hey, Rachel, welcome. These are the styles that we should be using. We're not going to use images like this. We're not going to use our logo in this way. It's very clearly laid out. It's very detailed, and it eliminates a lot of questions that your team members are going to have. So, because a lot of times, think about it. You're a virtual assistant. You need to throw something up somewhere really quickly. Your first temptation is going to be to message your team leader, which would be you, and say, hey, what font should I be using? Or is it okay if I use this color? Or how do you feel about purple or whatever? But if you had given her that brand guidebook, she would know, okay, these are the fonts that I'm going to use. These are the colors that we are going to use. These are the colors that don't fit my employer's brand. And so it's going to help. Having a detailed brand guidebook cuts down and eliminates a ton of questions right from the very beginning. So the first thing that I always say needs to happen is get a detailed brand guidebook. Go in depth, dig deep, talk about your brand message, talk about the values, talk about the adjectives that you want to be using to describe your brand. All of this are things that your team members need to know. And so by making a detailed brand guidebook, hey, Melissa, you're going to cut down on a ton of questions, and the process is going to be a little bit more eliminated, and you can give this brand guidebook to anyone, that you bring on later, right? So say, Amy has 2 people on her team. Well, Amy, I know down the road you're going to have 3 and 4 and 5. Instead of having to re-explain everything about your brand and everything that your brand stands for and the people that your brand is trying to attract and all of that, you just give them the brand guidebook and you say, okay, your first thing is to read this. It takes you 10 seconds. And then you're just sort of totally eliminated from the process. And that's one less thing that you have to get done during your day. Amy says that's great advice. Oh, good, Amy. I'm glad to hear that. Amy, do you currently have a brand guidebook? I don't know where you're at with your branding. I should send you a message. So the second thing that I feel like I do for my clients, or I feel like helps a lot, is when I'm working with my clients, one of the things I think, if you have a different brand strategist, have her do this, but you should have a team meeting, right? So if you're going through a rebrand, you should have a team meeting and it should be recorded, a recorded team meeting that teaches all of your current team members how to use and implement your brand. So the brand guidebook, that's a good start. But what you really want to do is get everyone on your team into a recorded Zoom call or Skype or whatever you choose to use, have it recorded and go over everything. So your brand strategist should be going over the website and what's going to be on the website and what shouldn't be on the website. It should be going over the image styles. Your brand strategist should be going over the vibe, the emotions that you want your brand to be evoking, the direction that your brand is going over the next 5 years. All of this stuff is something that your brand strategist should be explaining to your team members, and it should be recorded because, again, you're going to have new team members. You want to give them the brand guidebook and say, read this. This brand guidebook is all about me. And you want to give them this recorded Zoom session and say, watch this. If you have questions, reach out to me. But if you have those two things alone are going to make a drastic difference for your team members because they're going to get your brand. They're going to know the direction that you want to go in. They're going to be more involved because they feel like you've given them more responsibility, right? If you just told them, use these fonts, use these colors, they would do that, but they wouldn't have an emotional investment in your brand in the way that you want them to. You want your team members to be just as excited about your ideal clients, to be just as excited about your mission, just as excited about your goals as you are. And one of the ways that you can do that is involve them in the process, rather than just sort of giving them a short little to-do list. Show them your vision, show them the direction that you want to take your brand in, share your goals with them, and they're going to be more involved and more a part of the process. They're going to be a team member. They're going to be a team player, which is what you want. So having a recorded session where your brand strategist, your brand designer goes over everything, hey Audrey, and shares the big picture vision for your brand and the direction that you want to take it, that's important because it gets them on board and it makes them excited to be a part of this team. So first, you need to have a detailed brand guidebook, and the second thing you need to do is have your brand strategist to hop on like a team-wide call, and explain everything that you guys have just done. Because you've just, when you're working with me, you'll have just done a big rebrand. You have this gorgeous new brand identity. You have all of this clarity on everything that you're going to be doing. And now it's time to show your team members everything that we've done and all of that, and get them on the same page so that they're eager and excited about the direction that your brand is going in. Hey, Carrie, hello. The third thing that your brand strategist should be doing, or at least what I do for my clients, is help you get really clear on certain things. So brand clarity, I always say that the difference between you and a top performing influencer is that the top performing influencer has absolute clarity on your brand, or she has absolute clarity on her brand. She knows exactly who she's talking to. She knows exactly how to talk to them. And her brand is attractive, it's magnetic, it's mesmerizing, it pulls people in. And if you've worked with me, you now have all of that clarity on your brand. The next thing is to teach that clarity to your team members. So bare minimum, you should have absolute clarity in your brand. You should know who you're working with, who you're going to be attracting, how you're going to do that with your brand, the different steps that you're going to be doing, the content that you're going to be putting out, the message that your brand has, the voice of your brand, all of that. If you've worked with me, you're now super clear on. You're just so much clarity on all of that, which is good. That's important, right? But the second thing is getting your team members to have that same clarity. And that is where a lot of top performing influencers struggle, because they can talk to their brand strategist, right? And the brand strategist can kind of draw out those important things and those important messages and that important voice. But my clients sometimes struggle to communicate that to their team members and get their team members excited about it and clear on it, right? That brand clarity is so important. So part of what your brand strategist should be doing is taking that clarity that you've worked and you've dug deep and you're super clear on and communicating it to your team members. So what I recommend doing is including this in the process, in that call that you had with your brand strategist and your team members. They should be talking about the clarity. Hey, Jade, your team members should feel just as clear as you do on your brand voice, on your brand message, on your brand images, right? Because you now should know the kind of images that you're going to be using and the kind of images that you're not going to be using, the voice of your brand, right? The direction that you're going to take your brand in, the words that you're going to use, right? Because there's so many different brand styles, right? There's elegant, there's professional, there's relatable, there's woo-woo, there's all these different directions you can take your brand, and you now know the direction that you want to take your brand, but it's time to communicate that to your team members. And that's what your brand strategist should ideally do in that that recorded team member meeting, where you just sort of walk through everything that you've done, you explain it. There's usually like a presentation with the branded graphics, right, that we've just created. And so in my experience, the best thing about doing all of this is that everything becomes streamlined, everything becomes organized, and your team members finally get the vision that you have for your brand. They finally get, okay, this is the way that Ashley wants her brand to be perceived. This is the way that Emily wants her clients, her audience to feel about her. And so all of this is super important, and it needs to be communicated to your team members. And if you're not a creative or you're not a brand strategist, it's going to be a little bit more of a struggle to do that, just because I'm really good at taking a brand vision from someone's head and putting it onto paper. That's what I do all day long. But you want to make sure that everyone on your team gets the vision that you have for your brand, because otherwise you're going to struggle to get everyone on the same page. And you want that whole process to be streamlined, to be smooth, to be easy to do. Jade says, hey, lovely, you look like a mermaid today. Thank you. What a compliment. Oh my gosh, you're making me blush over here, Jade. I know, I feel like there's all this like light everywhere. So the fourth thing that you need to do, or the fourth thing that I do to streamline my influencers' clients' brand so that everyone on their team gets it, is have access. Your team members should have access to all of the brand deliverables in a Google Drive folder. And this is sort of like a practical thing, right? Because think about it like this. Most brand designers, most brand strategists, they sort of deliver everything via email, but that's not what you want. What you want is to have everything, hey, Brooke, what you want is to have everything on one Google Drive folder, neatly organized. So you should have your logo in a folder with all of the like EPS, AI files, all the files. Hey, Elise, hello. All of the digital files should be accessible in a Google Drive folder. It could be Dropbox as well. I mean, it can be Dropbox. It's just a place where everyone can access it. They should have your website files, right? Anything that they need for the website should be there. The fonts that your brand use, the colors that your brand uses, all of that should be in a shared Google Drive or Dropbox folder. And then when you get a new team member, all you do is give them access to that. Then they can have the logo whenever they need it. They can have any Instagram graphics whenever they need it, any webinar graphics whenever they need it, any workbook templates whenever they need it. All of this should be organized and streamlined and set up so that you're not running around sending people templates or sending people copies of your logo, because that's the last thing in the world you should be doing. That should be so automated like yesterday. So that's the thing that's like the fourth thing that I always do for my clients is I use Google Drive a lot. Some people use Dropbox. I don't really care. Either way it works. I have both. It's really whatever works better for your team. But you need to have that streamlined. You need to have that set up and organized so that you're not running around giving people copies of your logo. You shouldn't be doing that. You should be focusing on the big picture stuff, the vision and all the stuff that only you can do, and you should be delegating everything else, because that's how you're really going to grow. That's how your business is going to shift to the next level, and I know you know that. It's just a matter of how can I practically implement it. And one of the ways you can do that is by streamlining your brand and having everything be cohesive and organized, and taking all of those little pieces of the puzzle that you have right now, because you have workbooks already, you have a website already, probably, you have, a somewhat of a logo together already. But what you really need is to take all of that and to streamline it in one place in a cohesive brand identity that speaks to your client, that speaks to your audience, that resonates with them deeply. And so that is everything that I do for my my high influencer 7-figure clients. That's how we streamline it so that everyone on their team gets it. So just to recap, have a detailed brand guidebook, bare minimum. Have a team meeting where your brand strategist gets on and sort of presents your brand so that your team member gets it, and record that meeting so you can give it to new team members. Make sure your brand strategist is being very clear on the images, the voice, and the message of your brand so that your team members get it. And then keep everything, all your deliverables, all in one place. So have it all streamlined, all your brand files easily accessible by anyone on your team. And that's going to go a long way to streamline it. And what you're going to find is that the more you automate, the more you want to automate. And so you're going to get, at least for me, I'm getting obsessive about automating everything that I possibly can, because I'm super excited about just focusing on the big picture stuff, which is what I want to do. So hopefully this was helpful. Thank you guys so much for joining, and I will see you in the next live stream.